Hello, and welcome to the latest presentation of the Rift Valley webinar series. My name is Martha Booker-Johnson, and I am the host for today's talk. If you are participating in the live webinar, you can submit questions or comments in the chat module of the Zoom application at any time during the presentation, or ask a voice question by raising your hand once the presentation is complete. Today's speaker is Ahmed Sosal. Ahmed is a PhD candidate at the Leiden University Center for Linguistics. He completed his BA in Linguistics at the University of Khartoum. He did his MA studies in Linguistics at the University of Cape Town. Ahmed is currently reconstructing the phonology and lexicon of Proto-East Cushitic as part of his PhD. Please join me in welcoming Ahmed as he gives his talk, A Reconstruction of Proto-Highland East Cushitic Phonology.
Thank you, Martha. Hello and welcome, everyone. Today I will just talk about what I've been working on in the past year, the reconstruction of Highland East Cushitic. And also I should at the beginning really thank my supervisors, Christian and Martin, Christian Rapport and Martin Maus. And Yvonne tries also for her really continuous support since the beginning of working on the reconstruction of Proto-Highland East Cushitic. With that being said, let's jump into the presentation. I hope everybody can see the slides. Here are the outlines of the presentation. I just give an overview of the languages at the beginning and the location where they're spoken and the classification. It's mainly on the phonology, but we have to look into morphophonology to understand the phonology of Highland East Cushitic, and a bit of, of course, out of the morphophonology, the morphology, some morphemes has been reconstructed, and we will see only some of them. Then we will draw conclusions out of that for the phonology out of all of these three. The Highland East Cushitics are part of the Cushitic family, and the East Cushitic family branch is the primary branch within Cushitic, and also within East Cushitic, sometimes there is lowland and highland being primary branches next to Dulai languages. So but this is also might hold, but there are other classifications where they really flatten the lowland East Cushitic languages, and they just come immediately from Proto-East Cushitic, but it's still Highland East Cushitic stays as a primary branch. They're spoken here in southern Ethiopia, and also, but Burji goes up to northern Kenya. And we can see here in detail the languages. In the study, I only include Hadia, Kambaata, Gedeo, and Burji. This is the Burji in Ethiopia, of course. We have one further down, which is in Kenya. But there are also other languages like Kabena, Libido, Alaaba, which are related to Hadia and Kambaata, but they are not included in the study. Sidama also I didn't mention, but the 5 languages are Sidama, Gedeo, Burji, Kambaata, and Hadia, the ones included in the study. For the subgrouping, this is the East Cushitic. I'm proposing some change for the terminologies. That is just, I'm not really happy with these terms, which are just derived from a language for a group of languages, like so that is the basic philosophy behind the proposal I have. So instead of, for example, consoid just based on conso, why not call it Sagan? And for the Oromoid, rather than just Oromo for the whole group, Central East Cushitic, and for the Yakudula, it could be Western East Cushitic. Highland East Cushitic, it's a neutral term, so I didn't change anything, but since now we have Burji out, of the bigger group or just as separate. We can call it Northern Highland East Cushitic, or as Yvonne prefers, Core Highland East Cushitic, whatever term you like. I think both of them, they are okay. For Sahuafa, we can call it Northern East Cushitic. But just, this is not the focus of today, but just in case you were not there during my presentations, some of you were there, I think, in June. I have already talked about this. So let's not talk too much about this now. If you want to, you can discuss it later. The focus is the Highland East Cushitic, where Burji is also it goes up to Highland East Cushitic, but the other languages now they make Northern Highland East Cushitic, which are in the north, of course. Here are some of the abbreviations you will see, so that you know, this is HAT for Halia, CAM for Kambaata, and so on. Yeah. Let's get immediately into the database. The study is based on the data. Mainly, I took the data from Hudson, who has this comparative dictionary of Highland East Cushitic. I took most of the data from there, but I've updated most of them, because if you look here at the sources, mostly you don't see Hudson, but Hudson is there. If you expand each, you will see that Hudson is there, but I went back to other sources to update the data. Most of the time, the data is the same, but sometimes there are additions, missing cognates, and also updating. If there is difference in transcription, also I put both forms, like, for example, this is from test 5, is the initial glottalized stop, and the one without is from Hudson, and so on. And also, we have the Proto-Highland East Cushitic and the Proto-North Highland East Cushitic reconstructed separately. And the moment you look here, I have a column for the confidence of the reconstruction. The higher the number, the less confident the reconstruction. And if you look at, the numbers usually in Proto-Highland East Cushitic, when we include Burji, usually really the confidence is, the number get higher, the confidence is less, because of, how divergent Burji is compared to the rest of Highland East Cushitic. So that also tells you, gives you an idea of, the differences. And also, the data is around 400. It's more than 400, of course, the comparandum for the whole Highland East Cushitic. And this is fairly much, it's really a good amount compared to the rest. The database include, like, also the whole East Cushitic languages. It is not only the Highland East Cushitic languages. This is the source of my data. Let me jump to the next slide. First, the vowels are not too, there isn't much can be said about the vowels in general in Highland East Cushitic. We have these 5 vowels, which are short and long, but sometimes we can see there is a sort of irregularity in the vowel correspondences. But that cannot, it's just irregular. And I think I agree with all of the other literature before. For East Cushitic, there is this vowel ablaut, and that's why we see sometimes irregularities. Of course, next to labials, sometimes the regularity is higher, where sometimes there is rounding and so on. And across morpheme boundaries also, there is variation in the vowel correspondences. Otherwise, we are not going to talk a lot about vowels. Mostly we talk about the consonants. And these are the consonants we see in the Highland East Cushitic languages. There are about 27, all of the ones I listed in all of the languages. I collected this from the grammars. The least have been recorded were 23, and the most were 26. But when we put all of them, we have these 27 consonants. For the nya and the pa and the ba, these three, I don't have them in the database, except, for example, in Burji, there is one example with nya and one with ba, alternating with the voiceless one. And both words are coming from Oromo. So also there they are loans. Otherwise, out of the 27, these three are not included in the analysis. So the analysis covers the 24 we find in the data. Also, I have adapted some of the transcription. So this symbols stand for, yeah, sometimes in the literature, I see that there is this apostrophe followed by na, and I transcribe them as glottalized na. And also instead of the IPA, for example, sometimes I use this apostrophe for all of the glottalized consonants just to unify the transcription. These are the reflexes of the consonants of Proto-Highland East Cushitic. So simply, we have, these are the Proto-Highland East Cushitic consonants, and these are the reflexes in the individual languages. I have highlighted some of the columns where we have, yeah, for example, there is regularity for the sha in Burji, but not always. Of course, there are many problems with the sa and the sha. And also for the ejective ka, it's more regular in Burji compared to the rest of Highland East Cushitic. And of course, we have some special cases. We will look into details in the za, la, ra. We will look in details in this for these three. Also, there is a lenition in Sidama and Gedeo for the labial. And there is sort of alternation of time that we will look into this also. So simply, if we have this sign means there is the zero means there is loss in certain environments, and that is especially for the glides and for the fricative ha. And also the glottal stop is problematic, especially in initial position is not clear whether one should reconstruct it or not, because of, for example, this one also go to zero, the glottal stop go to zero, the alt pharyngeal of Proto-East Cushitic goes to zero. So there are many consonants in initial position goes to zero. So it's really difficult to know whether those, the initial vowel initial stems originally starts with the glottal stop or not. Yeah, so this sound I have introduced for these correspondences where we have ta, cha, and cha. But it's not there in the daughter languages as such, except in some recent loans from Amharic, for example, they have this so. Otherwise, this is just to represent this kind of correspondences where we have the cha and the ta corresponding. In these languages also, really there are no reconstructable consonant clusters, and for the geminates we only find these. These are more frequent. Otherwise, you just find the geminate in one or two languages, and it is not reconstructable to a higher level. If you have a question about this table, you can ask because there are a lot of details. So as I said, I'm going to talk about the za, la, ra, and the ejective ta. just as an example, because we don't have time to go through everything. The za has simply merged with da throughout Highland East Cushitic, except in Kambaata, Alaaba, and the languages related to Kambaata and Alaaba. So we have, for example, za, but only Kambaata has a za, otherwise other languages have da. The same in sort of in non-initial position. This word in Gedeo is coming from Oromo, where the same word is found as such, onna or heart. Hudson proposed za instead of a simple za as zasa. Sorry, there is an E here for zasa. But I think since we have the reflex za in Kambaata, there is no need to go for this. But Hudson's proposal also makes sense because he's just thinking that it makes more sense for za to go into da and za than just simple za going into da. But yeah, that is something for future research. But for me, I just went for the simple solution as Zasa proposed by reconstructing the Z up to Proto-Highland East Cushitic. And I think at higher level, Christian also has a proposal for a different consonant there. He talked about this during his presentation in Heidelberg. Yeah, this is for the Z. It is just like that. For the La, this La is special only in Hadia. So in the other languages, it is simply La. There is no change. So singleton La becomes Ra intervocalically in Hadia. As you can see here in La, Lalo become Laro. This is, although maybe a sort of reduplication, but it's still, when they reduplicate, the initial one is stay La, but the intervocalic one becomes Ra. And in the final position, it just stays Ra. In geminate and cluster, also there is no change. Intervocalically also, I mean, ille is just ille. It remains ille, and balle, balle for father. So if it is in cluster or geminate, intervocalically, it remains La. For Ra, it's the opposite, but in a specific context. In initial position, it stays Ra, but in cluster also there is no problem, but in geminate, when it is geminate, like we have dir becomes Hadia, dil, and Arabo becomes Alabo for the Ra. So it is opposite the La. Here are the reflexes. Initial La remains La in the initial positions, becomes Ra intervocalically, and then before consonant, it remains La. And the same for the Ra. So the contrast has been preserved only in this context. Otherwise, intervocalically, single La becomes Ra, and La becomes Ra becomes La. So intervocalically, we only have geminate La, and for the double, and Ra for the single. The ejective ta also found in the Highland East Cushitic, but problem with this sound is most of these words, where you find it, you don't find too many parallels in the rest of East Cushitic, but it's not as bad as the other ejectives. At least there are some. So we have this, it's just a straightforward, the ta remains ta in these words. For non-initial, usually we have more evidence in the North Highland East Cushitic. When we exclude Burji, we have more evidence for the ejective ta, especially in non-initial position. Otherwise, it's also, yeah, not that there aren't many examples in non-initial position for the ejective ta. Gedeo and Sidama, they have this variation between the da and the da, the implosive and the ejective on some words. But let's just look into Sidama now. We have this in the dictionary, at least I found these, where you find the same words starting with either, and they are just three variants. And this is actually could be attributed to some Oromo influence on the language. And you can see it also in Gedeo, which is more heavily influenced by Oromo than even Sidama. So also when I compared the evidence for and the links we have, I think in the lowland East Cushitic languages, we have the implosive. But in Highland East Cushitic, we have the ejective ta, and the implosive da is not really regularly reconstructable to Proto-Highland East Cushitic. So this ejective, this da is found in Burji, Gedeo, and Sidama, but it cannot go up to Proto-Highland East Cushitic based on regular evidence. And the best evidence for it is when it occurs as a middle suffix, but that is the only form which you can argue for this sound to be coming from up higher from Proto-Highland East Cushitic, but it's this sound is never found in Hadia or Kambaata. That's also what makes it weaker. And so I'm just thinking, why don't we just reconstruct the ejective ta for Proto-East Cushitic? And we have parallels in Proto-West East Cushitic or Western East Cushitic, which is the Yaku-Dulai languages. And it continues in Proto-Dulai as it is. And that will bring back Proto-Lowland East Cushitic because that is where we find the implosive. And this is the only evidence so far I know from phonology, which show that this Proto-Lowland East Cushitic really is a note in the East Cushitic tree. So, but I don't know how solid that is, because also we have this da in Dulai. Both of them, they are found there as phonemes. So I don't know if you have thought about this, let me know. But this is something I'm not sure of. I'm just thinking of why not? We can bring back to Proto-Lowland East Cushitic instead of flattening the tree and taking everything back to Proto-Cushitic, Proto-East Cushitic. Now let's jump into morphophonology, where most of the fun happens. And I think most of the sound change we see, the way I analyze them and from what I see are motivated by morphophonemic rules, because most of the change happen in the morpheme boundary. And when you look at the morphophonological process and how the sound classes also interact, it's really clear that morphophonology has a bigger role historically and synchronically in the sound alternations we see. So we have, at least now I have this process. I have some of them are, or most of them, they are active synchronically. I think all of them, they're active synchronically, except, for example, for the palatalization of the causative. This is historical, and also the singulative. So let's first look into the first five. I just take you through, you'll be reading this text. So the ta, which is pronominal, we'll look at the consonant when it is added as the first consonant of the suffix, and some consonants which are at the morpheme boundary at the final consonant of the stem. So both of them, they are affected depending on the morphological process that goes there. So there is a morphophonological process happening. So it assimilates, for example, in the first example, the ta of the pronominal, it assimilates fully to the preceding obstruent. And also Gedeo has this special voicing, partial voicing assimilation instead of full assimilation. But this is an exception in Gedeo only. There is gemination in Burji, and it's sometimes accompanied by palatalization. So instead of just geminating, they have sometimes palatalization. Double ta becomes cha or sha, and it's really puzzling how does just double ta becomes, how does the palatalization happen? But it happens in this case. And also when followed by a high vowel, that's not always for these cases, but if it is single ta, for example, the palatalization happens, but not always. And this ta, this pronominal ta is the third and the second person suffix. For na is also, these are the plural suffix for the pronominal plural suffix, and it assimilates to the preceding sonorant, except in Kambaata. And I also have noticed this sort of old process where we have sa of the pronoun, like in isin. You find in Burji, but it's is, ins and isn you find in different languages. So the na and the sa on the pronoun, they have been assimilated fully in Kambaata and Hadia, but a metathesis happened in Sidama and Gedeo. Also, there is a palatalization of the causative, or stem final S for the causative. The stem final S sometimes palatalized in Burji and Kambaata to sha. In Burji and Kambaata, they are returned, but they become sha in Gedeo and Kambaata. This process is really part of the innovation of the sha variant of the causative. This is number 5, I think. Probably I'm mixing up things here. This is the stem final S, not the causative. This shouldn't be here. The stem final S, sometimes the S of the causative, when it is attached to a stem final sonorant like la, ra, or even some obstruents like ba, there is sort of full assimilation of the stem final to the following sa. That is what I wanted to say about here. The causative also, as I said, it palatalizes, and I think this is, I have a rule which says that sa, if sa is followed by another consonant, it becomes sha, and that is how the sha. We have causative sa and sha in Highland East Cushitic, especially in North Highland East Cushitic, in Gedeo, Kambaata, and Sidama. And I think this variant sha is also due to morphophonological process when there was double causation. Causative sa followed by another causative sa, they become sha. And that's later, the double sha, which is product of this, becomes a single sha, and that is, we see this also now used as causative. Otherwise, the causative is sa and is without any change in Burji. But in the north, we have this sha variant, only fossilized in Hadia, but it is found as independent causative suffix in Gedeo, Sidama, and Kambaata. The second part of the yeah, we have palatalization in Burji where ta and ka become cha or sha in certain environment. We will look into this in details. But the labial also becomes weakened when it is followed by another vowel. This is an old and new rule. It has been there since I think the proto label probably, but still we see it in the morphophonological process. We have fusion where glottal stop when it's followed, when a final obstruent is followed by another, by a glottal stop, the product is a geminated, a glottalized consonant. And also we have, sometimes we see single, but I think this single sometimes raise doubt about loan. Borrowing from another source, because this should be the regular product. We will look into this also, and we will see an example. We'll see this in details. The metathesis also, these languages, they don't like sonorant, obstruent sequences to be in that order. So usually there is a sort of switch metathesis where the obstruents, especially for the glottal stop, is moved before the sonorant, the la and the na and the ma. And that series of consonants we have seen earlier, where I showed the apostrophe M and the apostrophe followed by na, la, ra, that is metathesis of glottal stop, of the obstruent followed by a glottal stop. There is also a penthesis. Sometimes I use these unspecified consonant symbols to just show that because this ya adapts to its environments, you find it as e, you find it as ya, you find it as wa. This is intervocalic. This is before front vowels, high front vowel, and this is before back vowels. So it adapts to the environment. So I just choose this unspecified symbol to represent all of this. I think, probably it's the same process. And also there is this weird epenthesis of the nasal na, found in some cases. And this na also is unspecified because it sometimes becomes ma when it is followed by a labial ba and other labials. So that's why also it is unspecified, but it's found as epenthetic. These four processes, they are the only ones which are conditioned by a following vowel. Otherwise, most of the process are just the fact that a consonant is meeting another consonant, and that, since the proto-language doesn't have that sequence, and they don't allow that sequence, then a lot happens. There are different strategies, and these morphophonological processes are just those strategies to avoid such, So I will show you the palatalization of Burji, the fusion, and the epenthetic now. If you want to talk about the others, we can, but I didn't include them in the slides. First, the causative. First, let's talk about the causative and its palatalization. So this is the sha. I think it was originally geminate, and it becomes single. And we can see it in these words. The intransitive is wa, and you can see the metathesis we have just mentioned. This is wom, become wom, because of the metathesis process I have just mentioned here. This metathesis process. And when we look at the transitive, it has the causative sha, and I think this is not maybe a fossilized form. That is why you find it in Hadia. Otherwise, Hadia doesn't have this synchronically. They don't have this variant of the causative. So it is found in such fossilized forms where we have the sha. And I think this sha, the causative, it is sa. If it is preceded by a consonant, it remains sa. or they insert the epenthetic E, it becomes is. But if it is double, I think historically, this sha is coming from double causative sa followed by another sa, it becomes sha. And that is, now you see it as sha after consonants also, sometimes, especially the sonorants, it's possible to find it. The geminate, it's not very common, but also you find it followed by epenthetic E. So you find the geminate sha for the causative followed by E in some languages. This is the palatalized causative and how it emerged in this language. Burji palatalization is straightforward. This is the next one. So this is a special thing found in Burji and mainly or almost exclusively found on pronominals. You can see the ta is a suffix, I think. And when it's followed by a, it remains ta, but when it's followed by e, it becomes cha. So this is for the nominative e, and this is the accusative, or this is the, yeah, this is why I call it terminal vowel. But anyway, the e is the one conditioning the palatalization, and the e is the feminine nominative. That is the motivation for the palatalization. That's why I think it is the morphology motivating for the palatalization in this case, and only because we have two consonants, that's why it becomes cha. Otherwise, if it's preceded by a vowel, it will become sha. All of these examples are the same. Here we have a t become a she for the nominative. Also, the e is the nominative suffix, and aten become a shino after adding this. I think this is probably maybe also the nominative added, or it could also be just simple epenthetic, but it's more likely nominative as we have seen it here. So intervocalically it becomes sha. When it's preceded by a consonant, it becomes cha in Burji. And the ka becomes sha, also just simply, even if it is, it has nothing to do with the preceding element. This one seemed to be initial even for the demonstrative. We have the ta become chi. So if the sha is only when it's preceded by another vowel. This is Burji palatalization. It seems to be an old process, as Zasa mentioned in his publication 1982 for Burji etymological dictionary. So yeah, it's mainly found on the pronouns. Then the fusion, we have this process simply of geminating and glottalizing the obstruents when they are followed by a glottal stop. What's this glottal stop? This glottal stop is a reflexive suffix. So you find the ba becoming pa, and that's just morphophonological process of resolving these sequences. And for the cha becomes cha, and this is pretty much found in all of the Highland East Cushitic language except Burji. And I should warn you also, when you go to the literature, you don't find only the glottal stop. You find also the implosive da posited here as the causer of the glottalization and the gemination. But for me, I think there is no reason to bring the implosive, because you have a variant or allomorph of the reflexive, which is a glottal stop. So you just pick it up as the reason for the gemination and glottalization. And also, when we look at these consonants, they are all devoiced. So the implosive is voiced. if you accept that it can be specified for voicing. But anyway, the devoicing of the voiced is also probably because of the glottal stop, not because of the implosive. So this is the way I see it is that, yeah, some of the grammars clearly indicate that it's the glottal stop, but some of them, they just say the middle. Some of them, they say it is the implosive da. But anyway, I think the simplest way is to just pick the glottal stop, which is in all of the, it's reconstructable for Proto-Highland East Cushitic as the reflexive suffix. So, and these are examples for each one of these. Burji is, again, not participating in all of this. And that's, again, takes Burji out of these languages. It's just like, for example, in this case, it's simple assimilation. The da assimilates to the final consonant and it becomes geminate da. And that's it. Otherwise, yeah. Burji is not part of this group. I will show you just one case of the glottalization where the ba become pa, and this is not synchronic historical process, because I have, for example, ba corresponding to ejective pa and fa. And this is really without positing this kind of similar, historically similar morphophonological process of this glottalization and diminution is difficult to see the relationship between these words. So I think the fa is a product of middle suffix ta, which is no longer found in any of the languages as an active separate suffix, but I am positing it because we have the da, and I think the da is just a combination of glottal stop and a together make the middle suffix. So when the ta is added following the ba, it yielded the fa, and we can see the fa here and also here and here. And when we look at the corresponding, we have either pa, the ejective in these languages, or a symbol ba, which is not affected in the other languages. So I think this is because of the glottal stop, and this is because of the ta. So the ta yielded fa, so ba, ta, fa. Ba, a, pa. And it is geminated. But also we see it on some nouns. So either some of these nouns are derived from some of them derived from verbs, and some of them are originally nouns, but followed by a nominal glottal stop, which we see sometimes in some words. And I think also one can propose it to be reconstructable. So the glottal stop of the reflexive affected the verbs, and the glottal stop of the nominal ending, which is, I don't know if it is number or another nominal ending, we have a glottal stop that also caused the glottalization and gemination in these languages. The final one is the epenthetic na. We see it in these cases. I am taking it back to most of them, really, it is just a replacement. If historically there was another consonant which has been lost and there is a gemination, for example, is resolved by it inserting this na before the consonant. And we can see it here in range. But when we look at, for example, Hadia, they have lesh, or just simple, or geminated. And Sidama also had the geminated. But in Gedeo, they inserted the na. So otherwise, it's difficult. This na cannot be reconstructed. And the sha also is not regular because we have single. So I think probably they go back to there was another consonant which has been lost and compensated for in the different languages by either here I'm reconstructing ha, okay, either by epenthesis or gemination. And the same goes for the others. Here we have in ba. Here there is no assimilation, otherwise it would have been in ba. There are other cases where it become in ba, like here. Here we have single ba. Here we have geminate ba. So usually you find there is a geminate in one language, and then the one with the na. Okay, in cha. Here we have sha, and so on. And this word is really Proto-East Cushitic word like ilk becomes ink in all of the North HEC East Cushitic languages. And I think probably first there was a process of gemination and glottalization. This ka is just ka in all of East Cushitic, except in Highland East Cushitic where we have it. So it becomes geminate. Then they reduce it and they inserted the na. So the gemination and the insertion, they sometimes just strategies to really resolve or to just recognize the original quality of the sequence. Finally, these are the morphological extensions I'm reconstructing. These ones are still not very they are not really finalized, but there is they are recurrent and they are found. This one could be okay. Yeah, for the demonstrative, this is okay. It's just simply we find it in all of the languages, we reconstruct it. But there is sort of, I think it was just the ka for the masculine, nominative, demonstrative, and the ta for the feminine. And I think the following vowel is just the case mark. So this is the nominative for the masculine, for the feminine, and the languages sometimes really neutralize this. If this is clear that the gender from the ka and the ta, this is for the case. Sometimes if the gender is the only thing marked, you find just ka and ta. But for the case, if the case is really marked, it should be ku and ti, and so on. So you find also on other nominals, when they are in the nominal, they usually receive one of these two, although synchronically, most of the languages, they have just e. So this part is really under construction especially for the vowels in the final position, but based on the frequency and the regularity, when I compare the case and the gender, I think this is what I would reconstruct. When you look at the pronouns, you look at many nouns, this is what goes for the accusative, masculine, feminine, and the nominative, masculine, feminine, simply. For the number, this is important for me because I am comparing the numbers in the whole Cushitic. And that's why, even though sometimes, for example, we have gap in Burji, and even in Hadia and Kambaata, I reconstruct them. This is the exception. Otherwise, usually I reconstruct the sounds, the single sounds, not the morphemes, if they have enough evidence in more than 2 or 3 languages. 3 in North HEC East Cushitic and Burji, and at least 2 in the 2 Hadia, Sidama, Kambaata, Sidama. But these 2 languages are very close to each other, and so it should be either one of these and one of these plus Burji, then it goes to Proto-Highland East Cushitic. Otherwise, No. So these are the morphemes I reconstruct. I will only show you these two because of the time. The singulative, I take it back to ta, although synchronically this ta is not reconstructed. It's not found as active singulative marker. We find cha and the geminate or single. This is before, preceded by e, and this is when it is just attached to consonant final suffixes. Why I'm reconstructing this ta? Because we have evidence like kalte and kalta in some languages. I think here there is something which is in a different color. So there is also kalch in other languages. So the cha is there, but here in these cases, I think this is fossilized. And the same goes for blacksmith. I think there was a fossilized singulative. We see it in tunt, but here there is no ta. So in based on these cases where we see fossilized ta, I think we can assume that the older one was ta. Based on morphophonological process, again we have come to this cha, which is geminate, and which we see in the languages. And it doesn't stop here. The palatalization continues. Synchronically, you find sha in these three languages at least, or 4 languages, except Hadia. So I think the only reason for me to go back to the ta, because this cha is not a phoneme. And it cannot be reconstructed because this is the only context where you find it. So since we have the pa and the other glottalized consonants as products of morphophonological process, so why not also assume that this singulative is also just a product of a morphophonological process as the others? That is their logic. This is the last thing. The plurative, it's just geminating the final consonant and adding a to mark plurative, and this is found in these 3 languages, Ideo, Sidama, and Kambaata, but it is common in East Cushitic. You find such kind of pluralization. Here we don't have, we have the singulative or the unmarked, and here we have the final consonant followed by a for plurative. In conclusion, these are the Proto-Highland East Cushitic vowels, and they are just simply the current vowels. And they occur as geminate, as doubled or long if you want, and single. And most of the nouns end on one of these vowels, but these are the vowels you find at the end of the as the final vowels. They are the case endings. This is the feminine, this is the masculine historically, but now you see mixed things and the gender also is not really clear. This is only found in the citation forms in Burji E, single one. Otherwise, these two, you don't find them on the in the citation for accusative in Highland East Cushitic, except in Kambaata. Kambaata is doing its own thing, of course. You find U in Kambaata a lot. So Kambaata is exception, but most of the languages, they have these two. In the, if you want to call it absolutive or accusative, there is no agreement in the grammars about that. But for me, it is clearly the case accusative marker, which is you find on the, so this is mostly where you find the vowels are really very important to talk about in final position. And there is something about this stress, and yeah, I'm not going to talk about it now, but we can discuss it if you want. This is just a summary to show you how we these consonants dropped based on the morphophonological process, and how these are really major classes in Highland East Cushitic. So classes obstruents, sonorants, are really important classes, and they determine which consonant should occur with which and which process should occur when these consonants occur. So assimilation happen in both directions for obstruents and sonorants, fusion within the obstruents only, metastasis usually happen between these and nasals, the nasals and the glides. Also, I think the laterals and trills should be here also. There should be a tick. Yeah, lateral trills, nasals and glides. So all of obstruents, if we include this, they have the metastasis. Epenthesis, usually they use the na or the glides for epenthesis. So these classes are important, I think, for the Highland discussion language. So by getting rid of these sounds, we will end up with 21 consonants. These are the most stable consonants. And if we take out the wa, I think these are the more stable. And here there is a lot of mess. This is really provisional reconstruction, the sound. And also one of the things I have noticed is that na is not found in initial position, and this one is really weak in non-initial position. And yeah, these are the consonants and vowels of Proto-Highland East Cushitic, the 21 consonants and the 5 vowels. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. We can now begin the question and answer section. The question and answer section will be open to voice questions as well as written questions. If you would like to ask a question, just raise your hand in the nonverbal controls present underneath the participant panel, and I will send you a request to unmute. If you prefer to ask a written question, that is also still possible. You can do so using the Zoom chat module, and I will read out the question. Please remember that the webinars are recorded so that if you ask a question, this will be part of the recording and will be released on the YouTube channel. Yvonne?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for this comprehensive overview and yeah, a lot of interesting findings. So I have some small clarification questions. Maybe I just post them so that you can read them. Sometimes it's a little bit difficult to speak about single morphemes. Sorry, phonemes. The first one concerns I often see pronoun in the tables that you have, and I wonder whether pronoun in this table means the subject indexes or the independent pronouns, or does it mean both? That was my first question. And then I have not yet very well understood your reconstruction on the causative, especially this double sh, and why this double sh needs to be assumed. Then I have a question on, I just listed them on slides 27 and 37, but I don't want to take all the time. So maybe you just have a look at the first two and then we hand over to somebody else first.
Yeah, thank you, Yvonne. The pronoun you're talking about is here, right?
Yes.
Slide. When I say assimilate, it's the pronominal suffixes.
But in the next line, in line 2, it looks like, sorry, in the same table, in the second line, it looks.
Yes, you're right.
This concerns the personal pronouns, the independent personal pronouns.
Yeah,
this
one is on the independent personal pronoun. This is, I think, historically, that's why this now also I reconstructed to Proto-Highland East Cushitic. It is the it's really is plus na makes up this plural they. Okay, isn't.
Yes.
And that's why I think also historically it is a product of morphophonological process. And but in this case, you're right here. This is really the n is not the pronominal n, but it's more of the plural n. So I should have also made it clear here. It's not.
Yeah.
But
okay. Yeah. Okay. That makes it clear for me. Yes.
Yeah. And the second question is about the causative.
Yeah, that was on slide 21. because there you
Yeah.
I didn't get why it starts in your table. It starts with this start geminate sh, and I don't understand why it starts with a geminate sh.
Which one starts? Sorry, didn't get your question here.
Here, I mean, if we look in the table, we have a star and then a geminate sh,
Yeah.
which becomes a single sh. So why do you have to assume that the proto phoneme is a geminate sh?
Yeah, because all of these assimilation or these processes, it is not a single, it is a product of two consonants. So there is an intermediate geminate. It's just for the to show that there is an intermediate stage before we get into this. So it's not just geminate sha went into geminate sa went into single sa. There is an intermediate stage where it was definitely geminate, then it becomes so I think geminates should produce a geminate, not a singleton. That is that's why, because also we see it in the singulative. We have the cha, which is geminate now synchronically and single, but for this for the sha here, they just retained only the single one. So it's just an intermediate stage, hypothetical, that at some stage it was sha. But if you want to go directly and you see that more, I see just for the logical flow of the rule, that is why I posit it as intermediate stage.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, thank you.
Ronnie?
Hi, thanks for the talk, Ahmed. I have two questions. One, that was interesting about the implosive D in Lower East Cushitic being the only phonological thing that argues for that node. When you map the languages that have implosive D, could you argue that that is just an areal sound change?
For the implosive?
You know, yeah, just, a different way of pronouncing either ejective T or glottal stop, plus.
I cannot call it aerial
cornel.
because I don't know. Maybe it is aerial, but I don't know how to justify for that. The only reason for going for the ejective T for Proto-Highland Cushitic is the fact that if you look at the table of consonants, the only implosive is the da. And there is a whole series of ejectives. So why don't we just posit all the ejectives to be the ta? And since we have the implosive da in the lowland Cushitic languages, and when I think probably all of them, they have this implosive da. And that bring them together, at least. And always there is this problem of deciding on whether something is contact or inheritance. And usually because I don't have really the luxury of going through everything and decipher which is which. That's why I only go for this aerial explanation, aerial or contact explanation where I have irregularity. So if there is a problem, then we will look into contact as a factor. And also for lowland Cushitic, I'm just thinking now, this is not really anything final. That's why I shared with you. But for me, if you see an evidence for it to be real, please let me know. But it could be inherited from Proto-Lowland, right? But let me
It's
know.
just that I don't know the languages so well to picture where they are on the map. But yeah, I guess it's not so unusual to have very few innovations to define a subgroup either, cross-linguistically.
Maybe those languages, they just accidentally, because also there is this lineation process of the stops. So maybe it's also just a sort of a form of, lineating it. Also, when you look into the languages, it's really not unknown whether it is implosive, whether it is retroflex. There is no agreement on the phonemic status or the phonetic description of this sound in many lowland Cushitic languages. You see this in the Somali grammars. and also maybe in South Africa and so on. Yeah. So it's not really clear in lowland what is the real identity of this sound. And that also make it really, I think for people usually reconstruct the implosive for Proto-Cushitic. That's why I'm just thinking, why should we go for them less certain, where we have this one, and it has a whole series on the consonant table of consonants. So yeah, that is the reason for proposing this. But after finishing the reconstruction, maybe it will be more clear. But no, I don't know.
Okay. So can I ask my second question, Martha? So you said that geminated T became palatalized. So is this correct that the geminated T becomes a singleton palatal, or does it become a geminate palatal?
The singleton T, the singulative, right?
No, no. When you were talking earlier in the talk, yeah, this is what I was wondering. You said the singulative was a single T, and that became a geminate palatal. So I was a little confused why the gemination may be. I was wondering if it made sense to reconstruct the singulative as a geminate, because otherwise it seemed like you were flipping.
Yes,
If
I'm
I
reconstructing
if
it.
I understood right, that the geminate T becomes palatalized, but does not remain geminate. I wasn't sure about that. That was earlier in the presentation. And you said, how does that happen? And there is some, like, I think in some Berber lex, some of the geminates, they have a wider contact than the non-geminate coronals. And so, just the longer the closure, the often the wider the closure, and a palatal has a wider closure than a T, certainly. So I could see how that sound change comes about, but I just wasn't sure about the length of those. If I'm just wondering, is there a reason to say that the singulative is a singleton consonant, or is it possible that the singulative could also be a geminate consonant?
The singulative is geminate and singleton, depending on the environment where it occurs. That's why I'm reconstructing both. You see,
A
there is a star
singleton.
for protonors. There is both of them. They are here. This is the singulative. Okay, so you are right. Both of them they are there, but it's just how does this star becomes cha? I mean, what's the motivation?
Right.
That
If we could say that it was geminate, then that would give the same motivation that you needed earlier for the
why
double
would
T
the
to become.
geminate, even the geminate, why would it become palatal?
Because the longer you make a closure, the more likely you smush more of your tongue up against the contact. And so more tongue gets smushed up there, and it's a broader, bigger closure, as
Okay.
opposed to a short consonant, which is more likely to be lenited or have, like a tap-like or just a smaller contact.
Yeah, that is plausible explanation, I think, because also we see it here in Burji. Burji has also such kind of yeah, here. This is also two the geminate ta. Yeah, stem final ta followed by ta. It becomes sha or cha, but it's still the sha also is like y sha and cha, both of them, and when which yeah, each one occur. But anyway, I think this also resonate with the singulative change historically. And also another explanation could be to think that this epenthetic ya has been inserted at some point between the two, and that's why we got the palatalization. That's also a third possibility, could be posited. But I think, yeah, phonetically also you can explain this because we see it synchronically here in Burji, although this is only Burji, not anywhere else.
I guess I'll let Yvonne ask her other question if no one else.
Yeah, what happened to the ch? So, so you don't have ch in your phoneme table anymore, and I think I also didn't see it in your table of reflexes. So, so ch is a result of it comes out of this proto-T.
Yeah.
Does it also come from somewhere else, or is the this proto-T, the only source?
I cannot think of another source because I don't, I only have to explain this because it is problematic. For me, it's only found in this context and a singulative marker. So if I
Yes.
have another cha for in other contexts, I would have tried to explain it, but that is the only place where I need to explain it. That's why, yeah, that is, and there I take it to the T. Otherwise, it is not, I don't find it anywhere else.
I mean, it's interesting that it can never be, the ch in synchronically, it can never be found at, or it's hardly ever found at the beginning of a word, and it's hardly ever found as a singleton intervocalically. So it has a very skewed distribution.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
but
So
someone might say, no, this could be reconstructed into the table, but you reconstruct one sound and it is clearly restricted to one morpheme, and there are
yes.
similar phonemic process producing such weird sounds. That would be really, yeah, it's just for me less plausible scenario. But yeah, some people might be more flexible with that. But it would be okay. Because also we have in Gedeo, for example, if you go like that, you reconstruct many consonants to the proto-level, which are really context specific.
Yeah. Yeah, and a little question on what was that? It was 27. Yes, this first line, this a bit and up being cognate with kaf. And then you say at the bottom of the table, you say a proto-B combined with a middle T, and this turned into F. I mean, this is somehow a fairly complicated rule. I mean, BT becoming F. Why not just assuming that B was, that it's a lenition B to F?
B
I
to
mean,
F?
yeah. I mean, okay. It's not the. I mean, it's then it's voiceless. Then yeah. I mean, I can see that this is a problem. How you can come from B to F, but I mean, it's not yet clear how you would come from B plus T to F.
Yeah, I think that is a good question. It is doubtful, but that is the only way I can explain it now. If you have a better solution,
No, I don't. I mean, I just had a no. I mean, I had no solution. I just had a. Yeah, I was just
but you're
wondering
right.
what could.
That is not. Yeah, it is questionable. I agree, but I have
Yeah.
no other way to explain it because we have here we have the middle, and I think the middle historically is ta plus glottal stop. So simply the ta was active on its own, and it's added in Burji, and here they added the glottal stop. So based on the whole logic of the reconstruction, it makes sense to think that there was a following ta. But I don't know how common cross-linguistically for ba and ta becoming fa. I don't know. That would be something to check. If it is common, then we can posit it. Otherwise, yeah, that will remain also something to search.
I mean, is this the only example? Because this example is somehow doubtful. I mean,
What
are
about
these
it? It is
are
also
these even called? Oh, sorry.
yeah, oop. And
Yeah.
here
Okay. Yes, you're right. Yeah. Okay. We have. Oh, yes. Yes.
will be
Yeah.
sad that gulf.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. So even if we assume that in the first line these are maybe not cognates, then you still have the other examples in
You have the
second
T
and
here.
Third line. Yes.
You have the
Yeah.
T in Hadia and Kambaata, and you have the Fa in also in Hadia for another variant and Sidama. So the T also
Yes.
you see it in fossilized forms like this. So that is, yeah, that's why I think somehow you can get that T, although I am positing it hypothetically, but sometimes if you look carefully, you'll see evidence for it.
Yeah. Yeah, anyway, I thank you for all this huge work of going through all this. I mean, it just strikes me as such an immense task, and I mean, yes, this is really quite an achievement, this reconstruction. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. I think those are all of the questions and comments for today. I'd like to take this opportunity to remind everyone that recordings of all of the presentations in the Rift Valley webinar series can be found on the Rift Valley Network YouTube page, and entries for each presentation are added to the Rift Valley bibliography. I would like to thank Ahmed again for his presentation and everyone else for participating today. I hope to see you again at our next webinar entitled On the Semantics of Numeral Reduplication in Maasai by Amazai Bedar and Michael Karani on Wednesday, the 5th of February.